Welcome to a special agenda. Thank you so much for joining me today, again, to discuss something that, as we generally start out with, um, honesty and expectation. Last week, we discussed something about that's a huge issue for a lot of families, particularly when you have special needs individuals that you're caring for, or even just within the family, of understanding why our young people often have problems with starting to misbehave and distrust us. Having issues of communication are often the bigger issues in their transitioning into becoming adults, and why we miss out on so many opportunities to close those gaps in communication and having solid relationships, and where they understand that it's always appropriate to communicate their needs with us, and understanding that we need to be trustworthy within communication, and that we follow through with what we say that we're going to do. Lots of times we give the impression that what we say may not always be trusted, rather than being honest with them and communicating that there will be times things fall through, but we have to make it clear that this will not be a habit. And by making it clear, I mean in our consistency, in our ability to be honest in our expectations, so that they know what to expect and we know what to expect. Where we will always be the people that they need, that they know that they can count on us if they can't count on anyone else. That is so crucial. And it's important that we understand why they expect what they expect. It's important that we do that with our mates. It's important that we do that on our jobs also. If you ever had a job that requires that you put together contracts, no one will trust you, and you will have lots of issues with litigation if you never follow through with what is written. If you both came to an understanding and you made clear what you were planning to do, what services would be rendered, what the charges would be, what was required of your services and of the client, this would be a problem. So why is it that we expect within our relationships with our mates, friends, and family that we can change the terms without communication? That we don't make it clear what it is we plan to do. It's important that you let people know ahead of time to when there will be changes. With people who are on the spectrum and people who have ADHD, things are either black or they're white. It's rarely any gray, meaning levels of understanding, particularly without communication. There are times within our relationships and friendships where there are misunderstandings based on things that are implied, things that seem to be things that should happen within the terms of certain situations, without us letting each other know what it is we want and finding out what the other individual wants so that we can be clear on what we will and will not be able to do. It's important that we be trustworthy. And the only way to do that is to be honest. If we're honest, we set a pattern that they can be. Lots of times, most of the people that are most upset with their young ones, or even their maids, or in their business dealings, they're often upset because of the dishonesty. You cannot be upset with your children if they've watched you lie, and there are people who lie. You want them to do something that you have not taught them. Be honest. It's important that you don't set people up to be disappointed, and you're upset that they're upset when you intentionally misled them. Even if it was the intent of not having pressure on yourself, even if it was the intent of the fact that you were overwhelmed and you didn't know how to handle that, or you were in a sticky situation and you no longer wanted to do what they wanted to do, or you felt like you couldn't accomplish it, but you thought you'd figure it out or you'd let them down easy later. Meanwhile, you never did get to the point where you explained. We can't be upset at someone also for expecting something that we never communicated that we were going to do or that we weren't going to do. Dishonesty is dishonesty. You cannot expect people to have trustworthy behavior if you haven't taught them that you're trustworthy. We are teaching every day with our behavior. Everything that we say and we do is a lesson. Whether we expect them to follow it or not, that's why the Bible tells us that bad association spoils useful habits. Being dishonest is a form of bad behavior. And when one is dishonest, that is a person, particularly when they're consistently dishonest, that is the person who is a bad associate. You would never encourage your children or even a friend to be close with someone that you know was a liar. And the reason you would tell them about your personal experience with them or discourage them from associating with those individuals was because you would consider them bad association. So are we in our communication and habits with our family bad association? Is what we're teaching them something that we want them to learn at any stage in their life? If the answer is no, then the person that we have to check while we're checking their behavior is our own. You cannot take the raptor out of someone else's, the straw out of someone else's eye when you have a raptor in your own. It is important that you teach your children that even if they do something that will require correction, that you are going to do it in a loving way. That means you have to communicate with them in a loving way regularly. Does that mean you're not going to get upset? Absolutely not. But is the way in which we're going to be upset and correct them a manner in which will be one that brings honor to our Heavenly Father? Or will we shame him by abusing them with our speech and with our conduct and how we teach them daily. Do we encourage our children to lie for us or go along with a lie and then get upset with them when they constantly do what we've been teaching them? Do we show them that it is important that we be trustworthy and that they be trustworthy because they are constantly being observed by Heavenly Father? Yes, He is forgiven, but He can see you. I think I always laugh when I remember the experience in the Bible when it talks about Adam and Eve after they did what they were encouraged not to do, which was eat the fruit. And then they realized that now Jehovah was going to be communicating with them about it. They tried to hide. I'm like, you know, He see you, right? That's like trying to hide behind a piece of glass that's clear. You know He see you, right? We have to remember that in our day-to-day life, that we are not hiding by not being honest. He always sees us. And he's always a revealer of darkness and untruth. So anything that we do that is dishonest will come to the light. And it's funny how children always catch us. I remember being young and realizing that adults weren't always honest in order to get us to do things that they thought was appropriate or um, not ridiculous. Sometimes they make up um, stories. And one of the things that I was told was I used to like to make a face because I had a friend who had dimples and I wanted dimples and I wasn't born with dimples. So I would make the fish face. And I remember realizing that it wasn't sticking, but I've been told by adults that if you made an ugly face, that what would happen is your face would get stuck like that. Well, I wanted my face to get stuck, and it didn't happen. And I remember my mom telling me to stop doing it. My face will get stuck. And I said, but that's what I want. So so I decided not to do it in front of her. And I did it in the mirror by myself. And it still wasn't happening. I said, I, I don't think I'm doing it wrong. So I think somebody lied to me. Now that was a harmless story in which it was intended to just stop me from doing something that was ridiculous. But we have to remember that all things aren't harmless. Most stories that are untruthful aren't harmless because once you lose a child's trust or most people's trust, it's so hard to get back. You can lose money and earn it back. You won't get the money you lost, but you can earn some more. That's rare in the cases of relationships. It's rare in the case of a relationship with a maid. If they find you to be unfaithful, if they find you to be hurtful intentionally, if they find you to be abusive in speech, if they find that you are intentionally hurtful in your speech regarding them, it's hard to get that trust back. It's important that we mimic the behavior that we are required to have, and that is being honest. The Bible is real clear on what God expects. We need to be clear on what we expect. Y'all have a great evening. Be kind to each other. Show each other love. And if you have to give someone hurtful information, do it as gently and lovingly as you can. But don't hide things from people because sometimes that hurts so much more than the truth. Have a great evening. Be a good example. Even if you don't think it will be found easy, be kind to each other and loving if you don't, even if you don't expect you're going to receive it back. Our Heavenly Father requires that. Good night, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me. Good night.